So in what I can only describe as an out-of-body experience, I had a video idea and I rushed to the works to buy the books for said video before I could change my mind. And then I went on Twitter and I tweeted about said video idea and people thought it was a really funny idea. And here I am 2 weeks later regretting all of my life choices, and it's taken me 2 weeks to actually film this intro because I don't want to do it, but I'm doing it. You can probably tell from the title of this video. The video idea was for me, a lesbian woman, to read straight romance. There honestly wasn't any rhyme or reason as to why I picked the 4 books that I picked. I mostly just went into the works and picked up any that had like TikTok sensation written on them, or ones I had seen people talk about on Book Talk and on BookTube as being particularly straight sounding. So they are the ones that I picked up. So we have The Love Hypothesis by Ali Hazelwood. I have November 9 by Colleen Hoover. I have The Spanish Love Deception by Eleanor Armas. And I have You and Me on Vacation by Emily Henry. As a lesbian woman, a gay woman, a woman who has been in a long-term relationship with another woman for 3 years now, nearly, wow. I have a lot of criticisms of straight culture. It just feels like a different world to me. Like sometimes I hear my straight friends talk about their relationships and like the complaints they have, and it just baffles me. Like it is so entirely different universe that I am just not in at all. And I used to try and read romance books before I had my gay awakening, I suppose, before I really realised that no, Georgia, you're not just bisexual, you are full on gay. You are not interested in men. Men actually kind of gross you out a little bit. Before I had that epiphany, I used to try and read straight romance and I never got it. Like it always just made me cringe, and now I know why that is. Lesbian romance, sapphic romance, WLW, women loving women romance. I am all over that. I love it. It's actually something I can relate to, and I like feel the characters on the page as if they are me. I can relate to them on a personal level. Straight romance, straight women, I don't get it. It is a different universe. It's crazy. So anyway, I have these 4 books. I'm gonna give them a decent shot. Like if they are genuinely good books and I enjoy reading them, I am going to tell you that. But at the same time, if these books are bad and if there's things in these books that scream out to me as like a red flag, what the fuck is going on in this book, I am also going to tell you that. And with that, I actually think I should tell you that I have already started one of these books. I started over the weekend You and Me on Vacation by Emily Henry. Like, I really don't hate this book so far. I just don't really care about it. Like, I could quite happily put this book down and never pick up again and not really care at this point. So I started reading this on Friday night. As of last night when I picked it up again, I'd only read 49 pages. So I read 49 pages in 3 days, which for me, like I can read 49 pages in half an hour. So that's not great. Last night I sat down, I read up to a page, I think about 130-ish. And I have some thoughts which I wrote down in my phone. So let me get my notes app up. So the main characters in this book are Alex and Poppy, and basically they've been friends for many years. Rhubarb, must you? Must you? I swear to God, she only uses that scratch post when I'm filming. It's so annoying. Alex and Poppy, they've been friends for like 12 years. The premise is they used to go on like this summer holiday together every summer, obviously. But 2 years ago they fell out and they haven't been on a holiday in 2 years. Rhubarb, really? Thank you, darling. And we don't really know why they haven't been on holiday in 2 years. They fell out, they went to Croatia and they just haven't spoken in 2 years. But Poppy is quite clearly in love with him. I don't know whether Poppy herself knows that, but Poppy is in love with Alex. And she invites him on a holiday this year after 2 years not speaking. They're currently on this holiday in Palm Springs. I don't really care about either of the characters. In fact, the only character so far that I have thought is interesting at all is Poppy's like influencer friend. So Poppy lives in New York. If this entire book was set in New York, I'd probably be a lot more intrigued by it. What is her influencer friend called? Like Rebecca or Rachel or something? I don't know. Her influencer friend is like quite funny. I quite like her. But other than that, Alex or Poppy, I just don't really care for either of their characters. I don't feel like there's any chemistry between them at all, which for a romance book, and again, I don't know if that's like the lesbian coming out in me because I just don't feel that. But the one thing which is really causing me some big issues so far with this book is they have repeatedly made references to the fact that they see each other as siblings. Like Poppy's like, yeah, Alex is like my brother, and Alex like, yeah, Poppy's like my sister. So you're like trying to convince me that these people are like in love with each other and they've got this like incredible sexual chemistry and sexual tension, whilst also referring to them repeatedly as just like siblings. They love each other like siblings. It is grossing me out. Like, it is so weird, and I'm just like, how are you trying to convince me there's like any sort of like sexual chemistry there where she keeps calling him her brother? And like, I know the chapters sort of like switch, so the chapters switch between like the past holidays they've been on and the current holiday they're on, so like I know a lot can happen in that like 12 years, but still, like, you're trying to set this up as like sexy. It's not sexy, it's gross. So anyway, I'm about 130-ish pages in, I think. I've got, how many more to go? Just over 200 more pages to go, so anything can happen. Rhubarb has now decided to sit on some tissue paper that I've got back there. You're really helpful today. I know, you're so helpful, thank you. 200 more pages, wish me luck. I don't know which one I'm going to do next. I needed to film an update for this reading vlog, and I thought to myself, you know what, I don't need to put any makeup, I don't need to put on proper clothes. It's fine, people can love me for who I am. And then I've turned on the camera and my hair looks like this, and I'm just in a hoodie. It is so cold today. So cold. I just got back from the yard after doing my horse, and I was like cold down to my bones, and I am not taking this hoodie off for love nor money today. It is staying on my body. My hair, maybe I can just try and like flatten it a tiny bit. Oh dear. Anyway, update. I finished You and Me on Vacation, and boy, do I have some thoughts. I must admit that I enjoyed this book more than I thought I would do. I didn't love it, but I didn't hate it. I thought it was actually like quite a fun read. It's not groundbreaking literature, it's not going to change your world, it's stupid and quite annoying in places, but it's fine, it's cute, it's fluffy. As a lesbian woman, which is the lens I'm reviewing these books books through, it wasn't that bad. It wasn't that bad. But of course, I do still have my many thoughts and feelings, which I'm going to share with you. There are a lot of gay side characters in this book. I counted 4 gay side characters. So there's her colleague, Poppy's colleague, who she works with in New York. There's Alex's brother, David, who is marrying Tam. And there was another one. Oh, Lita. So there's this lesbian woman they come across called Lita, and she's also in it. So there is like gay representation in the book. I can't remember what I've said about this book in the earlier clip, so if I'm repeating myself, then I do apologise. But basically, this book flips between the present day and all of the previous holidays that Alex and Poppy have been on together. So the chapters literally alternate between like present day, 12 years ago, present day, 11 years ago, present day, 9 years ago, like so on and so forth. And I do find it's interesting to find out, like, to piece their story together through all these past holidays, but I did feel like it taking you out of the present day story and flipping you back to like a different aspect of their relationship constantly really did make the relationship and the storyline of the relationship quite confusing, because it would flip between Poppy present day clearly being totally and utterly in love with Alex, even though she's not admitting it to anyone, to like 12 years ago where he's her brother. And then 11 years ago, he is my favourite person in the whole world, but he's definitely only a sibling to me. And it just, it was really jolting and jarring to like have to flip between those two like relationships. Because in a romance, like, correct me if I'm wrong, but the last thing I want is to be constantly reminded how much they see each other as siblings and not romantic in any way, and then the next chapter they're like, there's this or they're trying to put forward this like sexual chemistry and sexual tension, which kind of brings me on to my next point, in that I did not feel any sexual chemistry between these two characters at all. Like, even in the sex scenes, which of course did happen, maybe I should say spoilers, I'm going to be talking about like the plot of this, not like details, but they do have sex. Is that shocking in a romance book? Probably not. Even then, I didn't feel it, but I don't know if that's because I am gay and I personally don't feel that towards men, or if it just generally lacks the chemistry. I couldn't tell you, I don't know. Like, there's constant references throughout the book to like a sad puppy face that Alex makes, and there is nothing more like of a turn off to me than the thought of a man repeatedly doing like a sad puppy face at me. Like, that is not attractive. Am I wrong? That's just not attractive at all. Like, that is like complete turn off. No, do not make a sad puppy face at me. Talking about the sex scene, wait, I need to read you an excerpt of this sex scene, because I read this aloud to my girlfriend and she literally like nearly died of laughter, because the sex that Poppy and Alex had seemed to like defy biology. It's just not how sex works. And this is written by a woman. This is written by Emily Henry. If this was written by a man, I think I'd probably have like more sympathy towards it, because you expect that from men. I don't expect this from women. Like, women, know your worth, know your right, know what you deserve. Because it was, oh my god, I need to find it, wait. Okay, so they're like doing it. I'm not going to like go into the details because I really don't want this video to be demonetized. But this one sentence. I love you so much, Poppy, he says, and somehow just the sound of his voice tips me over the edge and I'm coming undone. We are together. I'm sorry, that's not how sex works. I don't know what words I'm allowed to say on YouTube without this getting flagged. You don't just say I love you to someone and then finish. Biology, that isn't what happens. Unrealistic expectations, because let me tell you, that would not happen in a sapphic romance book. I've read many, and sex, it's biologically correct in those books, because it's got to be, because otherwise it doesn't work. Otherwise you finish the book and you're like, what? Or do people think, what? My stomach is rumbling. I'm so sorry if you can hear that, I'm starving. That's not how sex works, Emily Henry, and I really hope you know that. I hope for you, you know that. I'm really struggling to take myself seriously every time I look in the viewfinder looking like this, but I'm just not putting on makeup today, guys. I'm not doing it. I'm not getting dressed. It's not happening. So what else do I have to say? There's a big reveal as to why they stopped talking. So leading up to this like current holiday that they're on, they stopped talking for 2 years, and the entire book like alludes to this like last time they spoke and something happened. When you find out what actually happened, it's pathetic, like it's really pathetic. Just communicate, just talk. This entire book could have been solved if they just communicated, and I know that wouldn't make for a very interesting book or plot, but like, it's frustrating. Like, it feels like lazy writing when writers just rely on like the miscommunication trope, because that's generally not what happens in real life. Well, that's what you'd hope that wouldn't happen in real life. Just like talk about your feelings. It's ridiculous. There's a third act breakup, which again, I hate. I hate third act breakups. But generally, I like the banter. I like the banter in this book. I like them better as friends than I did lovers. I thought they like had a really good like friendship kind of dynamic where like they were really funny. Like, this actually did make me laugh out loud a few times. It's light-hearted, it's easy to read. It's just a frustrating romance. But I gave it 3 stars. I thought it was fine. I read it. It really was fine. Like, once I got into it and got into the flow, I enjoyed the book. But then I put on Instagram and asked you guys which one I should read next. And you guys have all said The Love Hypothesis. And I read 50 pages of this in the bath last night. And boy, do I already have some thoughts and feelings. So far, 50 pages in, this is about a PhD candidate called Olive. She works at Stanford, or studies. What is a PhD? She's doing something at Stanford to do with her PhD. And she was dating this guy called Jeremy, but like very casually. And then Jeremy met Olive's best friend, Anh? A-N-H. I need to look up how to pronounce that. I'll know how to pronounce that by the next little clip. But Anh and Jeremy really hit off, but Anh refuses to date Jeremy because Olive dated him briefly and she's like a good friend, even though Olive keeps saying like, I don't care, date him. So then one day Olive says that she's on a date with somebody, but she actually goes to the lab, and then Anh comes in. So Olive then grabs like the first guy in her vicinity and just like kisses him, but it turns out the guy she kisses, I think this is meant to be that scene on the front, the guy she kisses is Adam Carlson, or Dr. Adam Carlson, who's one of the professors at Stanford, and he's like known to be a horrible asshole of a guy. But then Adam agrees to go along with this like fake dating trope, so Anh can just date Jeremy and Olive can have her off her back. I think it's really, like, the motivation behind all this is really weird and weak already. I don't really know what's going on. My main question at this point in time is, she just sort of like grabbed him and kissed him, and it's like, is that sexual assault? And the fact that it is sexual assault is brought up. But then it doesn't really go anywhere, but it kind of does. Like, the doctor's like, yeah, you just like assaulted me. And she's like, oh no. And then he's like, I'm going to report you. And then he doesn't. And then it just becomes like a joke between them. He is a professor and she's a student. Even though she's a PhD student, she's like 25, 26 years old, I think. He's like in his early 30s. Is there no question over like power dynamics there? Is what I'm thinking. It feels very like millennial, Gen Z maybe even of me to be saying this. But like, I just, like, are the higher ups going to be okay with this? I just find it hard to get invested in a romance when it starts in this way. Because I must say, if I was a woman walking through a lab and a man grabbed me and kissed me, that would be a sexual assault charge against him. But like, is the author trying to be like, oh no, it's fine and cute and funny because she's a woman and he's a man? And like, she's like sunshine and all happy and he's like grumpy. So it's like not only fake dating trope, it's also like sunshine grumpy trope as well. I don't know, but we're going to find out. We're going to keep going into it and I'll let you know my thoughts and feelings. Was I fully aware of just how terrible I looked at that last clip when I filmed it? No, I was not. Am I putting it on the internet anyway? Yes, because I'm not refilming it like I currently am with this section, because I filmed this and then filmed another video and then my card ran out of space, so I had to delete footage and I deleted the clip that I had just filmed like an idiot. So we're back, we're refilming this. I finished The Love Hypothesis. Oh god, books falling everywhere. I finished Love Hypothesis and you know what? I really liked this book. It's stupid, it is cliche, it is cheesy, it has every trope in the book. Every trope in the book. Oh my god, that's really funny. Anyway, it has all the tropes and it worked because it was so self-aware. Like, this book would take the piss out of itself for being so cliche. Like, every time like a new like fake dating trope came up, or like a single bed in a hotel room thing came up, like the narrator Olive would like comment on it and how cliche it was and how much of like a stupid romantic book trope that was, and that made it immediately like less stupid. It's just really self-aware. It knows it's a cheesy romance book, it knows that, and it embraces it, and I really enjoyed it. I think once you get over the weird like power dynamic thing between these characters, so Adam is a professor and Olive is a PhD student candidate person. Adam is not her professor, he is just a professor. He's 8 years older than her, so I think Adam is 34 and then Olive was 26. So like the age gap, they're both consenting adults. There's just a weird thing between like professor, student, but not her professor. Doesn't make it okay. I don't really know. I don't know the dynamics of like being a PhD student at a university, but it felt a bit weird. But once I got over that, there was nothing else to dislike about this book. Actually, no, that is such a lie. There were a couple of things about this that made me like cringe to my core. There's like a scene where she's like putting sun cream on his like topless body, and she's like commenting on like his 8-pack and how like solid his biceps are, and she's basically been like forced into like putting this sun cream on by her best friend, who thinks they're like real dating but really they're fake dating. That made me want to die. I really suffer pretty terribly with like secondhand embarrassment, like cringe. I cannot deal with cringe at all, and there are a few points in this book that really did make me cringe. Oh, and there's also a bit where they're like in a lecture and there's nowhere for Olive to sit, so she like has to sit on Adam's lap because like he's her fake boyfriend, and so she has to sit on his lap to like save face for everyone because that's what normal couples will do, and it was so highly inappropriate. It was terrible, and that also made me cringe a little bit, but other than that it's all good. Ruba, hi. So yeah, so Olive is asexual. I really do wish that Ali Hazelwood had sort of like explored that more in the book. It's like mentioned a couple of times, whereas Olive's like, I'm really just not interested in people until I've known them for a really long time. Like I don't feel sexual attraction really towards people, like it takes a lot, and that would have been a really good angle to delve into further. But at the end of the day, this is sadly a straight romance book, so I suppose Ali Hazelwood didn't see the appeal or like the value in really exploring that asexuality thing. Do I think it's good representation? Yes. Do I wish she'd explored it more? Also yes. I'm also talking about representation. Olive's best friend Malcolm is gay. Adam's best friend Holden is also gay, and yes, that does come into the story a little bit at some point. I like the representation. I like a straight romance book, which is probably going to be read by majority straight people. I like the fact that they include gay characters in it because it normalises it, and there's probably a lot of people who are going to read this book who are maybe homophobic or very religious or like very removed from like the LGBT community. So seeing that kind of representation in a book like this in a way that's not offensive at all, I thought like Ali Hazelwood did a really good job of representing these two gay characters. I think she did a really good job, and I think that's a good thing for representation. So also a point for that. I actually really like both their characters in this. I love Olive. She's like very much happy-go-lucky, sunshine kind of character. And then you've got Adam, who is very dark and moody. You've like really got to get like into him to be able to find these like softer layers. And I really like that. Again, a stupid romance novel trope. It works in this. I'm actually pretty sure that the character of Adam is based off of Kylo Ren from Star Wars. And I don't know why I think that. I just feel like I've read that somewhere, but also it fits. Adam is very much Kylo Ren, Adam Driver kind of vibes. Like I said, it's super self-aware. It's got this sort of like feminist women in STEM kind of storyline running through it. Like Olive and her best friend Arn speak a lot about sort of being a woman in STEM and how hard that is and all like the things they've got to overcome to succeed in their chosen careers, and I really like that. The sex scene in this, there's only really one sex scene in this if I remember correctly. It goes on for quite a few pages and it's actually good. Like, coming off the back of what I said about You and Me on Vacation, is that what the book's even called? That feels like a fever dream from a few weeks ago. Reading the sex scene in this compared to the sex scene in that, this is about women's pleasure. This is a good sex scene, even if it is with a man. It is good. The one in You and Me on Vacation, bad, not good. This one, good. It feels real, it feels realistic, it's biologically correct. And considering this is a book about science and women in STEM and a PhD candidate, you would hope that it is indeed biologically correct. It is. So anyway, I really enjoyed this. I actually gave this 4 stars. Is it stupid? Yes. Is it cheesy? Yes. Is it the best writing in the world? No. Is it a good story that I actually really enjoyed with characters that I really liked? Yes. See, I told you I was going to be honest if I genuinely liked a book, and here we go. I genuinely like this. But, and then we have moved on to November 9 by Colleen Hoover. This, I am about 120-ish pages in. This is not a good book. And I can tell you that without even finishing this, I feel actually physically uncomfortable reading this book. That is how terrible it is. The premise of this, you've got Fallon meets a boy called Ben. Fallon has been very badly scarred in a house fire a couple of years ago. Her self-esteem is like on the floor. And basically Fallon's in this restaurant having an argument with her father, and then Adam like is sat in the next booth and overhears Fallon having this argument. So just like has to jump in and save her with this argument with her father, and he like takes over, and then it's like Adam and her father like fighting over Fallon while she sits there in silence. Like it's very much like man must save girl because girl can't argue for herself. And then from there, it just gets worse. Like Fallon and Adam are own... Did I say Adam? I just realised I kept calling him Adam, didn't I? I wouldn't do that to the Adams of the world. This is Ben. Fallon meets Ben. Ben, they're both 18 years old. And I know 18-year-olds are technically adults. I know they are technically legal to have sex. I know 18-year-olds think about stuff like that. As a 28, nearly 29-year-old, do I want to be reading in graphic detail the sexual thoughts that an 18-year-old boy is having towards an 18-year-old girl? Not particularly. It feels wrong. I know it's legal. It just feels wrong. It's not what I, as a nearly 30-year-old, want to be reading about. It felt intrusive. It felt gross. There's a whole thing where he keeps like asking her about the colour of her panties. There's a thing where he's like talking to her about her boobs. It feels so uncomfortable. It's this like very overly sexual boy talking to this very low confidence, low self-esteem girl, and it just is sitting so wrong with me. So the entire premise here is they met on November 9th, which is the same day that Fallon was actually moving to New York. So they made a pact that for the next 5 years, every November 9, they would meet up and spend a day together. So I'm currently on the second November 9th that they're spending together. They're 19 years old. Is it any less creepy? No. I really, really hate this book, but for the sake of this challenge, I'm going to finish it, and I'm going to try and finish it tonight, because the only saving grace here is that it is only 300 pages long. So I've got that going for me. Everything else, no, 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 no. Earlier this year, I said that Find Me by Andrew Asserman is the worst book I've ever read, but I might have to go back on that, because I actually think that this could be the worst book I've ever read. This book was genuinely... There are no words, and I'm sure I'm going to find the words because this is going to be a scathing review. This was genuinely awful, misogynistic. Like, I am genuinely concerned that so many people read this and enjoy it. If you read the reviews of this on Goodreads and on Storygraph, it's like almost 4 stars across the board, and that terrifies the living shit out of me, because this is so misogynistic. This is not romantic. It's control. It's coercive control. Like, I am genuinely concerned for the female population. After reading this, I am never reading another Colleen Hoover book again. I'm not doing it. If this is what she finds romantic, I'm taking a stand, never doing it again. Awful. Genuinely awful. I actually kind of want to do a full review of this book where I go into detail about all of the issues I have with this, because I could talk about it for half an hour. I am sure it is... There are so many pages that I've like dogged and marked because I'm like, this is not okay. Like, it is so concerning. But let me run through all of the notes I made with you. So top of my notes, I've just written page 56. Let's see what was happening on page 56 that upset me so. Okay, so this is a bit where Ben has basically forcibly undressed Fallon and put her into a dress that he wanted her to wear that she was going to throw out because she didn't feel comfortable wearing the said dress. But he has undressed her and then put this dress on her because apparently that's romantic and that's not controlling or creepy or like non-consensual at all. And then this is a line that he says, "My eyes fall to the dress first. I have to give myself props for picking that one out. There's just enough showing of her neckline to keep me good and happy, but I'm not even positive I'll be able to look away from her face long enough to stare at her cleavage." And then he goes on to say, I'm glad I pushed my luck and asked her to wear her hair up because she has it pulled up into some messy little knot on the top of her head and I'm really digging it. Are you serious right now? Are you fucking serious? Like, this is already on the back of him, like, mentioning her panties multiple times already. Like, bear in mind, these two met 2 hours beforehand. He has mentioned her panties more times than I can count. He has spoken about her boobs more times than I can count. It is sickening. I've also written page 169 at the bottom. So let's see what 169 has in store for me. Okay, so this is a part of the book where basically Fallon has come to visit Ben in LA because obviously they visit each other once a year on November 9th. That's the entire premise of the book. And they decide to be together, but then Fallon realises that that's her being selfish. Like, the whole thing they do is they meet every year for 5 years, 6 years, whatever it is. And Ben needs to write his book, and he can't do that if they stick together at this point. Like, they need to see this experiment through to the end. I said experiment really weirdly then. So Fallon, like, goes to, like, sneak away from him, because she doesn't want to, like, hurt him. And he is, like, so angry, so, like, upset, shouting at her. Then all of a sudden he just, like, switches. And he's, like, being really nice. And there's this bit, I grip her face until my fingers are wrapped around the nape of her neck. I brush my thumb across her cheeks and encourage her to look up at me. I touch her softly, as gentle as my fingers are capable of touching her. She swallows. I can see that my change in demeanour is making her nervous. So you've got a man here who's just switching moods like this. He's suddenly acting really calm to try and, like, control her. And she's nervous. And it's being written here as if, like, that's romantic. I'm furious. This book is just misogynistic as fuck. The whole premise of this book is about Ben controlling Fallon. He, like, gives her assignments to, like, go out on dates. And then when she doesn't do that, he tells her off. And then when they, like, go to sleep together, because of course that's not a spoiler. I don't even care about spoiling this book because I'm not going to tell any of you to read it. But when they, like, go to sleep together for the first time and he finds out she's a virgin, he flinches away at it. And she's like, no, like, I want to do it with you. And he's like, no, we can't because I'm a respectable gentleman and I can't do that. Like, what? Like, a woman's virginity isn't tied to her worth. If she's telling you she wants to do this, God knows why. God knows why Fallon wants to have sex with him. I don't know why. But if she's telling you she wants to do it, she's giving you her full consent. Don't then, like, act all macho and be like, no, I simply can't. I can't, like, fuck off. He's controlling. There's one point where they have an argument and he takes away her keys to, like, stop her from leaving. And so she can't drive away because, like, he's, like, dangling her keys at her. There's one bit where, like, she goes to leave and he, like, literally physically grabs her and makes her stay. There's a bit, I'm sure, I don't actually think I wrote down the page, but I'm sure there's a part where he, like fantasizes about wanting to push her on the ground and hold her there so she stays and doesn't leave him. Like, if this was part of the premise of a book where, like, it's about domestic violence and about a man being controlling, like, you'd expect to read that. It's framed as romance. This is meant to be romantic. I've written here that he constantly forces her into uncomfortable situations, he constantly pushes her boundaries, he coerces her to do things that she doesn't want to do, but then when it is something that she wants to do, he throws a hissy fit. This book ends with Fallon grovelling him for forgiveness. There is a twist in this book towards the end, which I must admit I didn't see the twist coming. I did think, had this twist been in the sort of in any other story, in any other plot, then I would have thought the twist was fantastic because it's in this book. I don't even rate it that much. I just think it continues to show how awful Ben is. Like, the twist just, like, solidifies for me what an awful person Ben is. Also, there's homophobic vibes in this. There's, like, gay stereotyping. Colleen Hoover, I find, does give off kind of homophobic vibes anyway. A couple of her books I've, like, read questionable sentences. I've kind of, like, brushed off. No longer brushing off. No, homophobic. There's gay stereotyping. There's 0 gay characters in this, which I have liked about the other books because they have had gay characters. To top it all off, there's a bit in this book where they're basically asking each other what their favourite foods are. One of them says, I think Ben says his favourite food is pad thai. Fallon says her favourite food is sushi. And Ben's like, oh, they're basically the same thing. Like, they're both Asian. They're the same thing. Like, what? That's like saying that British food and Italian food are the same thing because they're from the same continent. That's racist. That is just racist. And there's no, like, apology for it. There's no, like, follow-up whatsoever. Like, Fallon isn't like, oh, that's racist. She just, like, laughs. Like, that's not a character flaw. That is Colleen Hoover writing that. Like, she wrote that. And then not a single editor, publisher ever picked up on this. Like, what? When was this book out? Let's find out when this book was written. 2015. This book's from 2015. That's not that long ago. That is not long ago enough that you can justify a ignorant comment like that, an ignorant comment like that, being written in a book. Anyway, I'm riled up. Maybe I will do a full video on this because I'm so angry about it. Next up, I'm going to read The Spanish Love Deception, the last book in this video, and you know what? I can't wait for this video to be over. I've started The Spanish Love Deception. I've got like 10 pages in. I can't bring myself to do any more right now. This video is going to go up later than I initially intended, but this has put me into a reading slump. I'm so angry at Colleen Hoover that I can't bring myself to read anything more, so that's where we're at. So apologies for the terrible lighting in this clip. It is like literally storming outside, so the lighting isn't too great, but I figured you don't really care on this channel, do you? Guys, we've reached the end. I finally finished the last book of this video and I cannot wait to have a palette cleanser of something that's not straight romance. I read these 4 books like one after the other. I've not read something that's not straight romance in like 3 weeks. The Spanish Love Deception by Elena Armas? Unsure. I've given this a generous 3 stars, but I might lower it. I didn't hate this book, once again, didn't hate it. I finished it. It is way too long. It is about 450 pages long. You easily could have shaved off about 150 pages of that and the book still would have been the same. You would have got to the same conclusion. So this book is about Catalina, or Lena, who needs a date to her sister's wedding for kind of ridiculous reasons. Her ex-fiance or ex-boyfriend is going to be there with his new fiance and she just like can't contemplate going to this wedding alone, which for the first part of the book seems really stupid. You don't actually find out the real reasoning behind that until about halfway through the book, which I found her motivation like for being so desperate to find somebody to go to this wedding with really, really ridiculous, until eventually you found out the real reason and you're like, oh, okay, that does make more sense. Kind of. Not great. It's still not fantastic, but like it makes more sense. Why not share that in the first couple of chapters? Then there's actually good motivation. This has been like my main criticism of all these books I've talked about in this video, or most of these books. The motivations behind the plots are really, really weak. So Lena's desperate for a date to this wedding. She's talking about it to her best friend, and then her work nemesis, enemy, work rival Aaron Blackford comes up behind her and he's like, I'll go with you. And Lena is so horrible to this man for like pretty much no reason. Again, you do eventually find out why she hates him so much. The motivation behind it is really stupid. Lena just comes across as a really bitter, stubborn, mean person, which makes it really hard to like read about her. Like she's the main character. It's hard to like read through that. She just doesn't come across as very nice. Obviously, this is the Spanish Love Deception. Lena is Spanish, and so they have to travel to Spain for this wedding, and they've got to spend a weekend together. You have the enemies to lovers trope, you have the single bed trope, you've got all the cliches in this. My main criticism of this is, obviously this is enemies to lovers, that's the whole premise of this book, but it very much goes from Lena hates Aaron, she hates him with everything in her. For whatever reason, she agrees to like do this deception, and then all of a sudden she's like obsessed with him, and there's very little conversation in that. There's just sex, like between her hating him and like clearly having like some little feeling, but like she doesn't really understand it, she doesn't really realise herself, I don't think. Sorry, my computer screen keeps going black, but it's lighting the side of my face. Between the hate and the love, and it turns into love very quickly, there's very little discussion, conversation, which to me as a queer person is insane to me, because when you're queer, you talk about everything. You talk about every single little feeling, every single little detail. This is just like, oh yeah, we had sex, now I love him. And they had no actual conversation until like the last couple of chapters, which was insane to me. Aaron Blackford is this like super tall, super imposing, chunky man with this rich, deep voice and ocean blue eyes. And I can tell you that off the top of my head because that is his only personality trait. The fact that he's got these ocean blue eyes and the rich, deep voice, because it is referenced on every other page. That is it. That is all you know about him, that he's got these blue eyes. I could have made a drinking game out of how often his ocean blue eyes are mentioned, but I would have died by 100 pages in, and that is not an exaggeration. I would be dead, gone, buried. So that's Aaron's only personality trait. Lena's only personality trait is that she's stubborn and mean, apparently, and that is pretty much all you learn about these two characters. So like I said, this book is super chunky, it's 450 pages long, could have been cut, a lot of that could have been cut. The first like third of this book is based in an office setting. They know each other through work, they work in this like tech consultancy company, if I remember correctly. There is nothing more boring to me than like office culture. I don't work in an office for a reason. I did for a little while. I did for like a year. I hated it. I hated office culture. I hated working in an office. There's nothing that turns me off a book more than it being set in an office. I don't care. I don't care about your office drama. It actually gives me a little bit like PTSD from when I worked in an office. I really, really hated it, and I don't like reading about it. It's just so petty. Like the things they've got problems with are so petty. Lena is a woman working in tech. I think she's like an engineer. She runs like an engineering team or something. And she like faces a lot of backlash for being like a woman in tech, a woman in engineering. And the book had promise in that aspect, but it never really like follows through. So there's a bit near the beginning of the book where Lena is basically forced to organise this event. Like her boss, through like being misogynistic, has got this big event to plan, and obviously it goes to Lena because Lena is the woman and Lena's the one who got to do that. And she's like trying to kick up a bit of a stink about it in this meeting with like all men. She's the only female, everyone else is men. And she's like, why have I got to be the one to like organise this event? And then one of her co-workers is like super misogynistic and a super big creep. And the rest of the men just like sit there, including Aaron. At this point, like they still hate each other. And then afterwards, Lena goes to Aaron like, why didn't you help me? And he's like, I didn't know you wanted help. And then he like switches it on her and makes it like her fault. No, my phone's vibrating. He makes it her fault that, oh my god, so much is going on. He makes it her fault for the third time that she didn't like stand up for herself. Like I found it really, really odd. Oh, this one thing really annoyed me. So Aaron refuses to call her the name that she wants him to call her. So her name is Catalina, but she goes by Lena. Everyone just calls her Lena. But Aaron refuses to call her anything but Catalina. And it's just like, is it meant to be sexy? Is it meant to be like, he wants to call her by like her full Spanish name? But it's like, she's asking him repeatedly to call her Lena. Like, she's like, my name is Lena, and he keeps refusing to do it. Like, if that was me in real life, like, if somebody kept calling me by a name that I didn't want to be called by, I would be so mad. Maybe that's why she hates him. You know what? If the motive in the book, the reason why she hated him was the fact that he only ever called her Catalina, I could get on board with that. That would have been understandable, because that would boil my blood. I've also written here, are abs something women actually want? I always thought it was more of a male gaze thing. So another big part of Aaron's personality, apparently the only things important about Aaron are the way he looks, is the fact that he's just like this big ex-football player, American football player. He's like big and muscular, and she keeps like describing him as like rock solid. I think I said this in one of my reviews for one of the other books, but he's got this like 8-pack and he's like solid and hard, and every time he like hugs her, she's like, oh, he's so solid. Is that something women actually want? Like, again, this could be the gay in me talking, But I have never, like, I thought that was more of a male gaze thing. I thought, like, the only reason why men like to be all, like, big and muscular is because, like, that's what men think is attractive. But most women I know don't find that attractive. Like, if I hugged somebody and they were, like, rock solid, I'd hate that. Straight women, in my comments, let me know. Is that something you're attracted to? Maybe I need to ask my friends, because I very much think that is a male gaze kind of thing. And if this book was written by a man, I'd be like, that makes sense. But it's written by a woman. So I think the further you get into this book, the easier it is to read. I found, like, the first bit with all the office culture stuff really, really hard to get through. I was, like, forcing myself. As soon as I actually got to Spain, I sort of got through the book a lot quicker. Which is why I've kind of given it 3 stars. Again, I might lower it to 2.5. But once you sort of reach, like, the third waypoint, the halfway point, it did, like, kind of zoom by. Aaron clearly has had feelings for Lena for a really, really, really long time. But he's, like, convincing her that she wants to be with him. At no point does he come out and be like, I like you, I want to be with you, like, can we go on a date? Like, I know he, like, started off on the wrong foot, but, like, I want to give things a go. No, but he, like, slowly convinces her that she wants to be with him. And it just felt very much like, I'm a man and I'm going to convince you. I'm going to, like, control you. I'm going to, like, fuck with your mind until you know you want to be with me. I found that really, really weird. It feels like he wants to control her and own her. Like, during the sex scenes, there were, like, references to, like, him owning her and him claiming her, which made me want to be sick in my mouth. There was also a bit about her, like, milking him, which, again, I nearly had to put the book down. It was awful. Is that attractive? Do people find that attractive? I don't think so. If a man came to me and was like, I want to claim you, he'd get a slap. Like, no man's claiming me. No woman's claiming me. Like, this is a partnership. You don't claim me. You don't own me. I'm not gonna, like, and Lena just falls at his feet. She's like, yes, claim me. Like, what? What? No, thank you. I've made up my mind. I'm lowering it to 2.5 stars. I'm doing it. It's not the worst read in the world. Like, you can get through it. Like, I see 3 stars as very, like, middle of the road. It's fine, but I've just, again, riled myself up talking about it now, so it's being demoted, 2.5 stars. My last notes here are, is there any actual chemistry? Does Aaron actually have a personality? Is Lena just stubborn and rude? Which I think pretty much sums up this book as a whole. Let's do my final roundup. So, as part of this video, I read 4 books over the course of 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks maybe. I'm going to rank them for you. In last place, number 4, we have November 9 by Colleen Hoover. Misogynistic, weird, incelly vibes. Hated it, hated it, hated it. Anybody who likes this, I'm judging you and I'm a bit worried about you, in all honesty. In third place, we have The Spanish Love Deception, but I must admit, if we're, like, ranking these, like, November 9 is, like, all the way down here. Spanish Love Hypothesis? Spanish Love Deception is, like, here. Like, these, they're not even comparable. Like, this is terrible, don't get me wrong, but this is awful, just the worst. So then in third place, we have The Spanish Love Deception. Don't need to tell you why, literally just spoke about it. In second place, we have You and Me on Vacation by Emily Henry. This was very much fine. The sex scene in this really riled me up. It's not how sex works. Women expect better. And then on top, we have The Love Hypothesis by Ali Hazelwood, which I didn't expect to love as much as I did. But you know what? I did enjoy it. I'm not going to think too much about it. I like this. Once you get over the weird power dynamic thing, will I be reading more straight romance? I think I'm going to give it a miss for a very long time. I need a palette cleanser. I need to, like, read one of my mystery thrillers, or I need a queer book. I don't actually have a single queer book currently on my TBR, my physical TBR, but maybe I need to make an Amazon order and correct that almost immediately. Maybe I'll have a couple of days off reading entirely. Maybe I'll just, like, do some crochet instead for the next couple of days, just to cleanse all of this out of my brain. I don't know if it's because these books are genuinely terrible. I don't know if it's because I'm queer, I'm in a queer relationship and I can't relate. I don't know if I just have very different expectations of what a relationship should be to what straight people think relationships should be. Like, these aren't what relationships should be to me. They should be full of support and like genuine care, and it's weird to me how low expectations are, and like what kind of things people find romantic are so far from what I expect in my relationship. I could do a whole like video essay on this. I really could. It's just fascinating to me. I don't know. And this isn't me like shitting on all straight romance. Like, if you're straight, you probably see this through a completely different lens as me. But as a queer woman, I just expect very different things from my relationships, and especially like being in a 3-year-long relationship myself, like a very happy 3-year-long relationship where me and my partner, my girlfriend, talk about everything all the time, incessantly. It's the lack of communication that gets me. That's the number one. And the lack of expectation of like good sex, that also really gets me. Anyway, maybe I will do that aforementioned video essay. Maybe I shall. Am I going to do another one of these videos? Not for a very long time. Maybe I will once I've forgotten the trauma, but I'm not going to promise a second part to this because I don't think it's worth it. Thank you so much for watching. Hopefully, I know this video's been really long. I just have a lot of thoughts and opinions. I'll see you in the next one. Bye, guys.